I think there were this question about office. What I said is when a country goes through a transition period, as in many other situations around the world, we can support a transition period because human rights is part of governance, it's part of the new fabric of a society, it's part of a new social contract. And there is a lot of support out there. There are many experiences from around the world. They can be extremely useful. And to be honest, I heard both from human rights defenders, from the students, from the civil society members that I met, from the members of government, that there was a lot of requests. Can you share this with us? What do you think about that? How do you undertake, judicial reform? Do you have comments on this law? And so there is a huge need to provide that support. My function is to provide that support to countries that ask for it. And that's exactly what we're doing. I think we also need to, look at human rights perhaps in a different way. Because there is, unfortunately, a lot of misinformation also about human rights. Some see it as a Western concept. Some see it only from the perspective that it's civil and political. Some see it as something that is maybe an imposition. But if I look at this country, well, first of all, the history of this country is rife with human rights and social movements on so many fronts, coming to women's labor movements, what you did in order to, also the last couple of months. I mean, it was about freedom, and it was a cry for freedom, and human rights was part and parcel of what students were saying and were clamoring for. And I think, so human rights is not an issue of one part of the world, it is an issue that is truly universal, which is why you have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted 75 years ago by all member states and reiterated again and again and again. By the way, I have a presence in about 100 countries, including in the Western world. For instance, we have a regional office in Brussels. We have an office, of course, an office in New York. So we have office presences. The problem that I have is that I don't get enough financing. I wish I could have an office everywhere, but unfortunately I don't get the funding. So as a result, we have to prioritize. And I want to prioritize precisely the situations where there is most need. And yes, transitions are often very, they are what they are. They are difficult sometimes, and they need support from everyone who can provide that support. And that's the offer that I have made to the authorities here, to the society here. And as I said, there was a lot of interest, a lot of also embracing of it, and we need to honor that. That's my duty to the people of Bangladesh. The issue of ICT, yes, I think it's very clear from the perspective of human rights law, and if you look at the ICT and both in the way that the law was constructed and it was set up, there are issues of compliance with international rights standards, and they need to be addressed. And both when it comes to fair trial, but also to due process guarantees. And it's really important to reform that. I've discussed it with the authorities. There was a very open mind to that. And that's often the problem. You have an interim administration that has not even been in office for not even 3 months. The expectations are extremely high. The changes need to be made are enormous. So we also need to, first of all, provide them the support that is required, but also exercise patience and manage our expectations. But law reform is absolutely critical when it comes to that. Then the issue of, you mentioned mob justice. Of course, violence committed by whoever commits it and hurts another human being, that obviously needs to be investigated. So it's not acceptable to have mob justice of any kind, and that's why you need the rule of law system to kick in and to provide precisely that type of response, because otherwise violence begets violence, as we see in so many situations around the world. Yes, as I mentioned, when it comes to change, there is a very different Bangladesh that I'm discovering, and I'm very grateful for that.
We can do one more round of 3.